Excellent. So we can now apply our stylings to multiple HTML elements with just one instruction at the beginning in our style sheet, which is usually great. But what if you have a certain paragraph that you want to look different to other paragraphs? Well, this is actually really easy to achieve using classes and IDs. So let's start with classes and find out how we use those. First off, I'm going to get rid of all my stylings and then just refresh. You can see the page now looks completely different, even though the HTML hasn't changed at all. So let's say I want to make this first paragraph red, but not affect the second paragraph. Well, what I do is I apply a class attribute to it, and then I can call that class whatever I like. So if I'm just going to make it red, I'll call the class red, but I could use any description I want there. So if we want to apply some CSS to the red class, we don't just type red, we have to indicate somehow that we're applying this to a class. And to do that, we use the full stop or period. So this is known as a class selector because it will select everything with a class of red. And then we just apply exactly the same pattern as before. So the curly brackets and then color, colon, red, semicolon. And then that will apply it just to things that have a class of red. Now that doesn't necessarily have to be paragraph tags. I could apply the class to my H1 tag as well if I wanted to, and then that one would be red as well. So it's a very quick challenge. Could you apply a class of large to this paragraph tag, the second one, and then make it twice as big as the first one? Go for it. All right, hope you managed that. So pretty straightforward. We just use class equals and then large in quotes, and then up in our style sheet we use dot large to select the large class, and then font size, colon, and then whatever number you want it to be, so 200% for it to be twice as big. Take a look. Fantastic. So really easy to manipulate things in this way. A really nice other feature is that we can apply multiple classes to a single element. So if we wanted this first paragraph to be red and large, we just put a space between them and type them both in. So red and large. Let's have a look. Fantastic. That is now red and large. So that's how classes work. IDs work in a very, very similar way. So let's add another pair of paragraph tags, and this time we'll give them an ID. And let's say I'm going to make this particular paragraph tag green, so I'll call the ID green. And we'll just have some very boring, this is some more text. Okay, so if we have a look at that, of course, there's no styling applied to that paragraph yet, so it's not green. But if we want to make it green, we can do very easily. The difference is, because we're working with IDs rather than classes now, instead of the period or full stop, we use the hash, which on my keyboard is Alt-3. Yours is probably around there somewhere as well, but it might be on the other side of the keyboard. And then the name of our ID, so green. And this is then an ID selector, and it will select IDs with the name of green. And then it's exactly the same as before, color green. Let's have a look. Fabulous. So it works in exactly the same way, but we use a hash instead of a full stop or period. So you might be wondering, well, why do we have classes and IDs then? Well, essentially they have slightly different uses. And the main thing about IDs is they should only be used once per page. So you might have different sections of the page, for example, and you might give them specific IDs because those sections are unique within the page. You probably wouldn't, to be honest, use an ID of green because you might want to make several things green. So essentially that's the difference. Classes can be used more than once, IDs only once. And we'll actually come back to classes and IDs again in JavaScript as ways of interacting with and moving around objects. And there the idea of classes and IDs will become very important once again. Alright, so that's classes and IDs. One more thing I want to show you is how we might style some text within a paragraph tag. So if, for example, we want to add, and this text is underlined, then how would we underline just that portion of it using internal CSS? Well, we do that using the span HTML element, and then this span is simply something that we can put around any chunk of text or image or combination of several different things, and then use that to select it. So if, for example, we gave this a class of red, then only the latter bit would be red. Of course, we want it to be underlined, so let's have a class of underlined, and then we'll add in dot underlined to select the underlined class, and then to underline something we use text decoration and underline. There we go. Remember, at this point you don't need to remember any of these. We'll introduce them. I'm a lot more familiar with them as we go through this section. But let's just have a look. There we go. So the text is underlined. So that's how you apply styles to text within some paragraph tags. So that's as far as we're going to go with classes and IDs in this video. In the next one, I'll be introducing the Div Tag, which we did see at the beginning of the HTML section, but you can be forgiven for forgetting it. So now we'll find out what its purpose is and how you can use it to apply styles to a group of HTML elements. See you then.